guys, and welcome to another video. This week I want to make the third part of my drum pedal 102, where I want to explain you a little bit the background or the theory behind the different parts of the drum pedal. So in this third part, it should be the third part, I'd like to talk about the beta. There are two things that are pretty interesting. One is the weight and one is the angle. So I think we should start with the beta in general, or the beta weight, because I think that's the more obvious and less interesting thing. A beta has a weight. When you put it on a scale, it shows you a weight, but that's not it. That's the static weight. There is also the dynamic weight, and that is the interesting thing. The dynamic weight, is different from beta to beta, and it depends on where the center of gravity is located during the rotation of the whole pedal. So there is quite an interesting difference if you compare how the beta feels and reacts if it is here, or if it is here, or if it is here, for example. So the further you go out from the cam, the heavier the beta tends to become, or tends to feel. You, for example, have tried to play a pedal with the beta centered on the bass drum, or if it hits the bass drum a little bit above. Or, for example, when you try some additional beta weights and shaft weights, there's a crazy difference if you put it here or if you put it here. So I think that's the whole magic with the weight, with the dynamic weight. And as in most cases, there is no true right or true wrong when it comes to the optimum beta weight. It highly depends on what pedals used, what settings are used, and obviously also on your personal preferences. So the only thing you need to know is that usually it is a compromise. A heavier beta brings more energy into the drum head, but also reacts usually a little slower compared to a lighter beta. A lighter beta brings lots of speed with it, but hasn't the same energy to bring into the drum head. Obviously, you can try to make a heavy beta react quickly, but that means you need to increase the spring tension in order to have everything run smoothly. And that requires that the pedal needs to be played with more power, which means that you build in, or that you put in more energy into the pedal than it comes out on the drum head. So by playing a heavy beta on a high spring tension, that is obviously, it almost results in the same thing as when you play a light beta on a light spring tension. So it is always some sort of compromise. In my eyes, way more interesting part is the beta angle. And the beta angle is, believe it or not, it is in a pretty close relationship with the spring tension. Thing is, as I've said in last week's video, I think, in part 2, the spring tension, there is a static spring tension and there is a dynamic spring tension you could adjust. And by increasing, for example, the beta angle, that also means that you increase the dynamic spring tension as well. Just take a look at this pretty generic standard beta angle. Take a look at how much the spring stretches when I just press into my, some sort of drum head, let's say. It increases or it stretches quite a bit, but it is not that crazy. So now I make it pretty extreme and move the beta quite a bit back, and now take a look what the spring is doing again. I mean, on the Darwin it is probably more extreme than on other pedals because of its more progressive spring geometry in total. But what you can see is that by increasing the beta angle, by making the beta angle wider or flatter, however you want to call it, that means that you build up way more spring tension during the whole motion. So if you think that your pedal reacts too slowly, too slippery, if you just cannot get it accurate and tight, before you try to increase the static spring tension by pulling the spring apart on its basic tension, as I've mentioned in last week's video, try to increase the beta angle. Try more steep, or try a more extreme beta angle. That could be the better direction to go, or the better step worth considering if you want to rearrange your setup. One thing you need to be aware of when you play a direct drive pedal, it is really special because a direct drive pedal has a bottom end when it comes to its geometry. How should I explain it? Okay, when I press into the pedal, there is a point where you cannot press the pedal further down, because the axis or the axle and this top point in combination with the bottom point forms some sort of line or some curve and reaches its very bottom position. That is very important when you have a pedal that offers the adjustment option to adjust the beta angle independently from the footboard height or from the cam rotation. Because, for example, when you let the footboard or the cam rotation at the same position, but you move the beta quite far back, that could mean that you bottom out with the pedal before the beta even is able to touch the drum head. So be aware that when you have the option, by adjusting, when you're adjusting the beta angle, when you're increasing the beta angle, make sure that you lift the footboard cam at least a little bit as well to prevent it from reaching the very bottom. Also, in my opinion and in my experience, the pedal feels more natural balanced when the cam is a little angled to the top on the direct drive pedal. So make sure to try that out as well when you're experimenting with different beta angles and beta just setups in general. So it's quite some fun to experiment with that. And you will be surprised how different the pedal could feel and the pedal could react depending on some little parameters. So always stay a little curious, and if you have some spare time, spend it on experiments, because that's fun, trust me. So yeah, with that being said, I hope once again it was at least some sort of understandable. If you have any questions or if you just want to contribute in any way, feel free to reach out to me by writing me an email. It's usually the best way to reach me. You'll find all the information on my homepage, and I think hopefully probably in the description if editing then is not lazy again. With that being said, have a nice day and see you soon. Cheers!